And welcome back. I'm Craig Shields. I'm here with John Perlin, and we're talking about his book, Let It Shine, the 6,000 Year Story of Solar Energy. Now, John, in the couple minutes we have remaining, what I would like you to do, you're an historian. I mean, you're a scientist and an historian. And by which I mean you're not a prognosticator. You didn't get, where you are here at the University of California at Santa Barbara by predicting, something that nobody else saw. Having said that, I've always believed that people who are astutely aware of the minutia of the current situation are in the best position to predict the future. And I don't think I know anybody who has studied this any more closely than you in terms of not only the past but the present of solar. And so what I'd like you to do is take a couple of minutes and walk us through what you see to be the most likely scenarios vis-a-vis the more and better and more expansive uses of solar here in the United States and around the world over the coming, say, 3 to 5 years and 10 to 20 years.
Well, I think the reason I wrote my book was to provide almost like a roadmap of 6,000 years of useful information on how we can use that safely placed nuclear reactor called the sun. So everything in the book can be used today. In fact, what it shows us, the most important thing about the book, I think, is it shows us we can do it. Because society after society with far less tools have done it in the past. And it also provides a blueprint that we can work from using a far greater toolkit than our ancestors had to make this change. In fact, on a micro scale, when you had Hurricane Sandy, for example, the only houses in New Jersey that were livable were the passive solar houses that also had photovoltaics on them. And also I would argue that photovoltaics is a passive technology too, because there aren't any moving parts.
Right.
And that's the definition of passive that was developed in 1972 when David Wright built the first solar house, passive house in New Mexico, and he asked some engineering friends from Los Alamos what he had done, and they said, well, mechanical systems that move things are called active, and a piece of technology that just sits there and creates heat without any moving parts or creates energy without any moving parts is passive.
I say that's very interesting. I guess you could argue that either way. You could say that, for instance, it's the sun's energy that also accounts for wind. So, for instance, the reason the wind blows is because the sun shines, but there you have kinetic energy in the wind that's extracted.
Well, the reason why solar is so ideal is, first of all, it shines everywhere. Second of all, the temperature is perfect for all its uses. For example, we don't want our solar cells to get too hot.
Okay.
We don't want to get our houses too hot. Also, when you think of it, the sun is in perfect position to be used in the wintertime and avoided in the summertime. And so if we take all these, and plus we have windows which can trap solar heat when we need it to be a little hotter. We have concentrators which were developed 3,000 years ago, which can even get temperatures up to about 6 to 800 C. So we have all these methods that were developed by our ancestors, even photovoltaics, to make the transition to solar energy a very easy one.
Very interesting. Okay. So welcome back. I'm Craig Shields. I'm here with John Perlin. We're sitting here in the physics conference room on the third floor of a beautiful building here at the University of California, Santa Barbara. And we're talking about John's book, Let It Shine, the 6,000-Year Story of Solar Energy. And I would like to go back to this thing about, I think we've covered a lot of ground, certainly about the history of solar energy, and probably where we can and should go. I guess the real question is, will we? And that is much more a question of political, creating political will to do something that threatens extremely powerful interests. And you may not be a political scientist, but you're certainly an extremely astute guy. And so let's go back to what you believe to be the most likely future. Obviously, we can do this, but the question is, will we? And how would you?
I would use my son as the perfect example. When he was in high school, he thought I was a real loser because I was working on these solar books. Now that he's working on his PhD program in organic chemistry at UCLA, he thinks I'm a real winner because he sees solar being used everywhere. Mm-hmm. So it's just like Max Planck said about quantum mechanics, that the people who oppose it, and God, did they oppose it in the beginning. I mean, the fights, it became a racial thing, an ethnic thing, where, I don't know if you know this, but in Nazi Germany, they divided physics into Aryan physics and Jewish physics.
Oh, my, I had no idea.
And guess what was Jewish physics? Quantum mechanics.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And, it was degenerate physics.
Oh.
And the Aryan physics was classical physics.
Wow.
Because quantum mechanics introduces, introduces chance.
Yes, exactly. Uncertainty.
Uncertainty.
Yeah.
And that was considered degenerate. Mm-hmm. And that was the old way of thinking was cause and effect.
Yes.
So the same thing is happen, and Max Planck said, well, what's going to happen is the people who are versed in the old physics are going to die out, and quantum mechanics
Literally
will
die out.
Literally die out.
Yeah.
And the same thing will happen here in the world is, as kids like my boy, they'll think solar energy is just something you do. But that's the reason I wrote the book, too, was to hopefully speed the process along by educating.
Yes.
And I hope my book does this, is that I show people, one, the context of how these inventions were developed, two, the people, how they persevered, and three, how they went from idea to fact and then to mass use.
Mm-hmm. Fabulous. John, thanks very much. This has been just terrific.
You're welcome.
Okay.